Hey everybody, welcome in to the Skol Purple podcast. This is Tony, aka Steggy, aka Steggy Stories, coming to you live here on a Thursday evening. We are on schedule release day. So how about that? Yeah, super excited. The Vikings have released their regular season schedule. I have been refraining all day long from looking at the schedule. I know it did leak earlier today. So I know the team released it at 7 o'clock tonight, which was just about a half hour ago. But I have not looked at the schedule yet. So I'm super excited to take a look at it, provide my thoughts. I know we're going to have a pretty tough schedule this year with us being, or playing, I should say, a first place schedule. So we're certainly going to go ahead and see what that looks like. I am hoping that we get in one of our guests that we had scheduled for tonight, which is AJ from State of Skol. They're a 10K Takes affiliate podcast, Vikings podcast. So super excited to have him in. Hoping to have him in certainly as we get going here on the show. But just wanted to take a look at the schedule, talk about it with you all. I'm going to take a quick drink of water because I didn't do that right away. Skol, hopefully everybody's having a wonderful week. Wonderful water. That Hy-Vee water, good stuff. All right, let's take a look at the schedule. I am going to pull this up, and I was trying to grab a graphic that was friendly to the YouTubes, and unfortunately, I couldn't really find one to put up on screen, which I know would probably be really helpful. But I couldn't find one, so I'm just going to read them off to you. Certainly, if anybody's watching live, welcome. We appreciate having you. Please like and subscribe. It really does help the channel, helps us reach more Vikings fans out there. We really like interacting with the community as well. So if you want to leave a comment, we absolutely will respond. If it's a great comment, we might even make a video about it. So again, please like and subscribe. It definitely helps the channel. Skol Vikes, baby. All right, so taking a look at week one. So taking a look at week one here, we've got the Buccaneers at home. So we got Tampa Bay, we have Baker Mayfield coming into town here in Minneapolis. Week one will be the Buccaneers. I'm not going to go through and give win-losses until I think we get through the schedule here, but then I'll definitely go through some win-loss predictions with you. Week two. Now, this is going to be a familiar week two, one that provides a little bit of pain, a little bit of heartache. It's going to be Philadelphia in Philadelphia. So Eagles again, last year and this year, in Philadelphia, week two. So hopefully we can get some revenge against the Eagles in week two. But we'll certainly see. That also happens to be a Thursday night football game. So for Vikings fans out there, we get a lot of football right away. We'll be playing Sunday, and then immediately the following Thursday, Bucks, and then into Thursday night football with Philadelphia. Week three, we get the Chargers at home. So Chargers at home. How about that? Okay, that'll be a little Eric Kendricks reunion game where we get Eric Kendricks coming back to US Bank Stadium in week three with the Chargers. Week four, we travel to week four, we travel to Carolina. So week four will be away at the Carolina Panthers. So again, we're going home, away. So we're going every other week here at home. Week four at the Panthers. Week five, we are back at home. So continuing the trend of every other game being a home or away game. We have Kansas City at home. So we do play KC, but we get them at home. I don't know how much that's going to help our Vikings, but we do get them at home. I'll see if Patrick Mahomes can come into US Bank Stadium and maybe we can rattle them a little bit with those Skol chants. All right, next that brings us to week six. Week six, we are at Chicago. So again, continuing with that trend of every other week with the home away, we are at Chicago in week six. Week seven, we are home against the 49ers. So week 7 is going to be a big matchup. I would anticipate a tough matchup for the Vikings. Week 7 at home, though, against the 49ers, and that's going to be Sunday Night Football. So Sunday Night Football home against the 49ers. Next, we've got Green Bay. So Green Bay in Green Bay. So our first game against the Packers, the Jordan Love-led Packers, will be in Green Bay week 8. So certainly that'll be an exciting one. Hopefully we can put the smackdown on the Packers there. Week 9, we are at the Falcons. So we'll get to see Bijan Robinson in action, rookie Bijan Robinson in Atlanta, week 9. Week 10, we will be at home against the Saints. So home against the Saints. Week 11 will be a Sunday Night Football game, and that's going to be at Denver. So at Denver is going to be week 11. And I misspoke, actually. Now that just looking back at the schedule, the week 7 game with San Francisco, that's going to be Monday Night Football. So how about that? Monday Night Football, San Francisco. We have a decent amount of primetime games this year, which is nice. I mean, usually that means the league thinks, we should be playing some good football. Now, granted, they gave the Broncos a bunch of primetime games last year, and that didn't work out too well. So let's hope that's not the case for our Minnesota Vikings. Week 12, we are home against Chicago. So week 12, home against the Chicago Bears. Winding down in the season here, we've got week 13 bye. So finally, when we get into week 13, we get the bye. And it looks like we do have our guest in here, AJ, as I kind of rattle through the rest of the games here. I'm going to bring him in, get through the rest of the games, and then we're going to talk about it. We're going to discuss. It's a good slate. I'm excited. I am excited. AJ, how you doing, sir?
Hey, man, I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing well. We're live and in living color, man. How about that?
Yes, we're live. We're finally we've got football to talk about, actual tangible football in the future. What a crazy concept.
I know. I'm living in the future right now. And, I don't know if you're in Minnesota. I always assume everybody that's a Minnesota Vikings fan actually lives here, because I don't know why you'd choose to be a Minnesota Vikings fan. I mean, I love the Minnesota Vikings, but I don't think it's a team where you're like, out of all the teams, it's going to be the Vikings.
Right.
At least that's my story. In my family, they're all big Vikings fans. I got brought into it. It's probably, there's something wrong with us. I don't know. Are you a born and bred Minnesota Vikings fan, or maybe you are, maybe from somewhere else?
Yeah, born and raised in Minnesota, lived here my whole life in the Twin Cities. It's actually funny. My mom is a pretty big Vikings fan, and then my dad is a I don't want to say big, but he's a Packer fan. So that was always an interesting dynamic having to deal with twice a year. And then I remember when they won the Super Bowl, the day after they won, he came into me and my brother's room, woke us up playing Green and Yellow by Lil Wayne, and trotted around with his Packers shirt on. And I never was angry at my father for a stupider reason in my entire life.
Yeah, that trumps any sort of making you do the dishes or take out the garbage when you don't want to. I think if one of my parents were to come into my room, I don't even care. They don't even need to sing the song. If they just came in with a jersey on, I think I'd be irrationally angry about it.
Right.
Yeah. Well, that's good, man. I appreciate you joining us again. AJ coming over from State of Skol. One of the other fine Vikings podcasts you can find out there. Where can everybody find you, by the way, AJ?
So everybody can find my socials. Mostly my ads are at AJ Murphy 763 on Twitter and Instagram. I also do a little bit of TikToking, but not really. And then you can find the page that I work for and work with, State of Skol, on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok as well.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to talk about the schedule. I had gotten through the bye week 13. So I'm going to finish up the schedule, but then I think we should go back through it, mainly because I want to start making some too early predictions as we move through the schedule. So again, moving out of the week 13 bye, which isn't ideal. Look, every team wants that bye somewhere week 7 to week 9 to give you that nice halfway point. Week 13 is a little late. The hope is that if we can stay relatively healthy up through about the bye, we're going to be in a great spot because we do get that late bye. We could maybe be fresh going into a playoff run. Let's hope. But week 13 is a little late. I'm sure the team doesn't love that. Week 14 at the Raiders. So I'm sure everybody's circled December 10th on their calendar. AJ, have you got your tickets yet? For
I
Vegas?
already started looking at flights on Kayak, man. I'm ready. I told myself if this was the one road game that I get to this year, this was going to be the one.
It has to be. I might just spend Christmas out there. I'm going to be honest with you.
Not a bad idea.
Not a bad idea. It's a gift that keeps on giving. We've got week 15 is going to be at Cincinnati. And that's a TBD, by the way. So that could be another primetime game, one that they're keeping on the radar as a possible flex, depending on where both those teams are at. Week 16, and this is where it's going to get a little crazy because if you've been listening, I have not mentioned the Lions yet. So, of course, the schedule makers are assuming there's going to be a little battle here with the Vikings and the Lions. So we got week 16 at home, US Bank Stadium with the Lions, December 24th, Christmas Eve. So that's going to be a lot of fun. If you celebrate, you'll probably be with some family. Always nice. And look, even if you don't celebrate, usually not a lot of people work. So, hey, there we go. And then we've got week 17, which is the Packers at US Bank Stadium. So again, back-to-back home games, divisional games. That game is slated to be a Sunday night game on New Year's Eve. So tons of fun. Get the champagne ready. We're going to absolutely kill Jordan Love and the Packers. And we all get to ring in the new year with hopefully a 42-0 victory there. And then to finish out the season, so twice in 3 weeks, we have the Lions in Detroit. So again, schedule makers thinking that Lions and Vikings might be fighting this thing out again. Week 17 or 16. I was right. 16 and 9 or 16 and 18. I don't know. I can't count today. It's Thursday, almost the weekend.
Numbers are hard.
Yeah, they don't pay me to do math. 16 and 18, both the Lions. So again, capping off the season with the Lions in Detroit. I think it will be a little bit of a battle for the division this year. I do think that the Vikings, regress from a schedule or regress from a record standpoint. I don't think they're going to be 13-4. I think to think this team is going to be 13-4 again is crazy. I think they'll be a better team with a worse record. I think this team will be a better, more well-rounded team, but I think we're going to sit at about 10 or 11 wins. I haven't looked at that per the schedule, but that's just been my prediction. So, AJ, have you looked at the schedule today?
I saw like the early leak of it today. From what I'm seeing, it's looking like that's the correct schedule that I saw. So I did see it. I'm very pleased with what I've seen so far. Lots of primetime games, 2 Monday Night Football home games, which we haven't had since 2019. That's absolutely ridiculous. There's no way that ESPN hates us that hard for us to not have US Bank Stadium on the national stage, but here it comes back and we got 2 of them. So making up for lost time.
Yeah, I'm excited. I mean, I said this earlier in the broadcast when I got through a few, I think like the Thursday night game, then we had a Monday night game, right? How crazy is that too? We're going to have a lot of Vikings football right away in the beginning of the season. Obviously we're going to play on Sunday, week 1 against the Bucks, but then we got Thursday night is the second game. So we just quick turnaround 4 days later, we've got Vikings football again. Unfortunately, it's in Philly. But I'm excited. A lot of primetime games. I feel like that's a vote of confidence from the NFL, but at the same time, you remember who got a lot of primetime games last year? The Broncos. and that was a disaster. So let's hope they don't start flexing us out of any of these games like they did the Broncos. Looking at the schedule, you feel good about it? Do you feel like, I think it's going to be a tough schedule, but I think we kind of got a few breaks where some of these tougher games seem to be at home. I think probably the toughest road game, in my opinion, it's the Eagles, week 2.
Right. Yeah. Eagles week 2. Thursday Night Football, just get that out the way. Let us have our weird, stupid little hiccup right away. And then if we win, then we catch everybody off surprise. So I really love the schedule as far as like a logistical standpoint. You're not having any cold weather games. I mean, that game in Cincinnati might be a little bit chilly, but not anything where you're like going to Lambeau and freezing your ass off. I mean, the middle of the schedule, starting with the Packers all the way through past that bye to the Raiders, that looks super winnable. Like you said, all the tough games are at home, so you could still see us lose. But even in that situation, you throw the crowd aspect into it, you throw the fact that the Vikings are generally better at home at US Bank Stadium. I feel like that could be more of a coin flip like that. I mean, having the Chiefs here, that's going to be so crazy. And then 49ers, I mean, there's just so many things that are loaded. But from a logistical standpoint and just kind of like looking at everything, I feel like it works out very well. The Lions, the last 2 out of the 3 weeks of the season, that'll be dicey. And those are for sure going to be like all eyes on us type games. But I think this team has done enough leading up to this point and probably through the season that they'll be ready for it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. I think that I think the Lions are going to be in the mix, but I have the sneaking suspicion that the Lions are going to lion, man. I mean, between the weird, parlays on FanDuel and just oddities that are the Lions. And look, as much as a Vikings fan can, I really like the Lions, right? Like if we're not playing the Lions, like I feel like if you don't like the Lions, there's something wrong with you. And I mean, you can think they're a bad team, but I think you must be like a psychopath if you don't like the Lions in some weird capacity. So I cheer for them to do well, but I just have the sneaking suspicion that they're gonna end up somewhere between like 7 and 9 wins again. And I'm not saying that like that's bad. Because again, I think the Vikings will probably end up just a little bit ahead of that. I don't think by much. So we'll see. I think all the hype with the Bears is kind of a little overblown. And I personally think that the Packers, as much as people are trying to raise the stock over there, like, oh, but we don't know. I honestly think the Packers are going to have a pretty rough season. Like I would be surprised if the Packers win more than 6 games. I think they're probably more of a 4 to 5 win team this year. I also kind of think conspiracy theory, it's a little bit their plan. I think that was part of what took the Rodgers deal so long too, is they really wanted the draft capital for next year so they could try to load up to get one of those top 2 quarterbacks in the next draft. And then we're going to have to deal with that for forever.
No, please no.
Yeah, that's my conspiracy theory with the Packers is they probably looked at the Jordan Love situation and went, look, we're going to roll the dice. I don't think they're going to tank. I just think that if he fizzles out and they just have a flop of a season, I don't think they really care that much. I think they're eyeing that this next year for that next Green Bay franchise quarterback. So we'll see. And then, we talked about the Lions and the Vikings. So, AJ, before I begin, by the way, thank you, welcome, and thank you for joining us again. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. I always tell everybody that every 10 minutes. Please do it. Otherwise, I have to cry and eat ice cream. And look at me. I can't handle any more ice cream. So going through the schedule, we're just going to go through it. I think we should go through it. Let's talk about it. I'm going to pitch it over to you first with each of these, though, to get your thoughts. And you got to give me a win-loss. Week 1 at home, we've got Baker Mayfield and the Bucks coming into town. How do you feel about it? Do you think it's a W on week 1?
Week 1, I think for sure that has to be a W. The Buccaneers last year, you look at it, they were a team that was in the mix. Tom Brady really kind of kept them alive, though, and they had some really hard games to watch where it was super ugly football that you were seeing displayed on your TV, and you'd much rather be watching something else. But I think the aspect of Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, that can't be overlooked, and that's going to be a crazy good litmus test, I think, for that secondary and that defense as a whole coming in week 1. But I'm not really too scared of Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, again, they could be a surprise team. There's always someone that you're like, they're not going to do anything. And then they pop up out of nowhere. So maybe this could be the off the radar team. But I feel like this is a good spot where, it's soft enough. There's kind of some uncertainty there with, how good they're going to be, how good their defense is going to be, because they've been a defense that's been, up there top 10 in the last few years, basically since Tom Brady came over, and even before that too. But I feel like this is going to be a dub for sure based off of what we're seeing so far.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that we get a week 1 win, we start 1-0. What's going to help the Buccaneers outside of the Vikings game, because we're going to kill them. No, what's going to help them in the long term is that just that division is not very strong. I mean, I personally think the NFC South, I think is going to go to Carolina this year. I think Carolina, depending on
Wow.
how it works out. Yeah, I think Carolina is going to take that division. I just don't see. The Saints are a mess. I mean, you don't know what. I think Derek Carr is going to go there, and I'm glad he's getting his money, and certainly he's with a franchise that wants him. But outside of Chris Olave, I mean, can we bank on? Why can't I think of his Thomas? Is Thomas even going to play?
Michael Thomas.
Yeah, Michael
Yeah,
Thomas.
he hasn't played like a set of 3 or 4 games in like 2 or 3 years. Like people forgot that name because he just hasn't done anything.
Yeah, so I mean, they couldn't really do anything in free agency. Not that matters, but they couldn't fill any holes because they were like $50 million over the cap or something crazy. Alvin Kamara might be going to jail, so there's that. And
I don't know how he hasn't already.
Yeah. So I don't know. I just think I think New Orleans is going to be kind of a mess. It was a surprise to me to some degree that Carr went to New Orleans, because I felt like for a guy that's trying to lengthen his career, maybe go to a franchise that isn't also a mess. Like the Raiders, I would say, were less of a mess. And I know it was more of the Raiders letting him go in that situation. But again, it felt like there were better suitors out there, but that's nor here nor there. Yeah, I think Carolina, depending on what they do, we'll see with Bryce Young, but that defense isn't bad. And the Lions, they got hot towards the end of the year in that crappy division. They almost made the playoffs. So yeah, I'm going to say dub week 1. Week 2, we kind of teased this already. Thursday Night Football. We've got the Eagles in Philadelphia Thursday night. I think I know what you're going to say, AJ, but just shoot me straight. Let me down easy.
I mean, this is like what football nightmares are made of. Like, if I were to have a dream about going and playing a game as a member of the Vikings, it would be in Philadelphia, where people are giving me all these profanities and all these hand gestures, and it's in prime time and we lose. Like, it's an L, and at this point, I don't see it going any other way. Like, the Eagles are stacked. They were the NFC champions for a reason. They could have very well won the Super Bowl. They played a great game, except for one mistake. And I mean, they lost a lot of pieces though. So maybe, we give them a little bit of a test, but as of right now, I don't see any way in hell that we come out of there with a W.
Yeah. Sadly. And I thought they did well in the draft. I mean, that Nolan Smith pick was phenomenal.
Oh yeah. They loaded up.
Yeah. I love Jalen Hurts too. I've been a big Hurts guy. What was funny is going into the 22 season, I've talked to Eagles fans, and we've had them on the podcast here. And I was like, I think you guys are going to be pretty good, like going into last year. And they're like, I don't know. And like, there's still a lot of questions with Jalen. And I'm like, I think that guy can ball, man. I don't think that's your problem. And there they go. And like you said, they almost took home the trophy. So, the Eagles are one of those teams for me that they fall into that very niche category that the Packers do, where I there are players on the team that I respect. And I'm like, that is a good player and the team is good. But the fans, and I'm not saying all of them. I'm not trying to say all of them. I'm just saying my soft mashed potato head can't handle a D battery going to the back of it. So I can only take so much. My only other like real-time interaction like on game day with Eagles fans was I'm dating myself here a little bit, but I went to the 07 I think it was wild card round. It had to have been Tavares Jackson led Vikings against the Eagles, and we got killed. And I saw at least like 6 fights, and it was rough. They were kicking our behinds on the field and off the field, apparently. So yeah, not a big fan of the Eagles, but I also think that's probably a loss. So starting out 1-1, not, look, it is what it is. I think as long as we can be competitive and we don't get killed in week 2, like if we can hang and then maybe we lose on a last drive or what have you, I think Vikings fans have to come away with that not feeling too bad, because I do feel like the Eagles are probably the cream of the crop of the NFC, which I know seems like no shit, but
Right.
it is what it is, right? You got to hang with the boys if you want to be one of them.
Absolutely.
Week 3 is at home, Chargers. Little bit of Eric Kendricks revenge game coming back to US Bank Stadium.
Oh, true.
How do you feel about the Chargers coming back home? Eric Kendricks trying to pick off Kirk Cousins.
See, here's the thing. I am a huge, and the guys in my show will tell you this. I am a huge Justin Herbert stan. Like, I don't know what it is, but it's like, I don't know, because like I adopted Oregon as like my college team in like high school because I was like, oh, cool uniforms, like they're my team.
Yeah.
And then like once Justin Herbert like came out of there, I kind of like stopped caring about college football. But like he is like my guy, and I'm definitely 100% going to be in the building for that game. The Chargers, they got a revamp offense. Kellen Moore taking over as OC. They've got some offensive pieces. We saw the massive miserable choke that they had last year against the Jags in the wild card round, the super wild card round. And that defense I feel like it's slept on. So I feel like that's going to be a tough game, but I feel like that's one of those games where, the experience and Kirk being Kirk and US Bank Stadium being the building that it is kind of flips that for us. I'm going to say that that's like a sneaky, like 4-point W right there.
Yeah. I like the W in this game, but I think it's a high scoring game. I think this is like, this game is going to be, back and forth, punch for punch type of game. And nothing against either defense. Obviously, the Vikings had some work to do this offseason. I think Brian Flores is going to do a lot of great things with this defense, which is great. I think the biggest thing for this defense is going to be aggression. They're going to be young. They're going to be out of position from time to time. But I think the focus, and especially with Flores' style of play, is going to be let's make that offense execute under pressure and see if they can play perfect football. Let's see if they'll make mistakes, throw an interception, fumble, right? And that's what it's all about, is just being scrappy. So I think this defense is going to be kind of a fun one this year. I think it's going to sneak up on a lot of people. But I like that one. I like your idea there, starting out 2-1, take away the W at home against the Chargers. Week 4 is at Carolina, the NFC South winner, as I've already crowned them. How you feel? I just, who do they have? Andy Dalton, isn't it? Is Andy Dalton, and then behind it is going to be Bryce Young, and they said they're going to start Dalton, which I'm not saying is dumb. But it is. I just think it's one of those things where they kind of have to say that. I think they're just trying to give this, like, we're not going to hand the job to the rookie. He's got to earn it. I guess I'll ask you 2 questions. The obvious, which is what do you think is going to happen in the game? But 2, do you really think they're going to start Dalton, or do you think he's going to earn it in camp and Bryce Young start in week 1?
I'll answer your second question first. I think Bryce Young is going to be the guy right out the gate. I mean, this may be a thing where maybe week 1, Andy Dalton will get the start and then he'll come in, or I don't know. But I feel like Bryce Young, from what we've heard and what we've seen, a Heisman winner, he's almost unlike anybody that we've seen before. And what someone said, if he was like 6'3", he'd be a generational talent. So I think, that's just the Panthers front office and coaching staff, trying to come out and say, hey, you got to earn this. And I think he definitely will be the starter at that point when we go into that game. I am taking that to be a solid W for us, just because I feel like the Vikings are way above the Panthers level. They got a good defense. They got Thielen. So maybe he'll have some intel to kind of chip us on. But at that point, even if Bryce Young, here's like this, like if Bryce Young starts, like how far along will he be? And like how good will he be? And even if Andy Dalton starts, I'm not too scared of him either, especially with that offense. So they do have Miles Sanders, and he's been a good back, and they have a decent offensive line. So I feel like they have, what it takes to maybe test us a little bit, but I feel like we've got enough pieces to go down there and get a W for sure.
Yeah. I think it's also a win, and for a lot of the reasons you laid out, I just think with rookie quarterbacks, and I'm a I'm a Bryce Young fan. I think he's going to be fine. I think as long as he can survive the NFL, because it's not only his height, he's also just kind of a smaller framed guy. So I
Right.
think as long as he can put some meat on his bones, he'll be okay. And I just think the football IQ is through the roof with him. So I have high hopes for him. But you're 3 games in basically, right? And then heading into that Vikings game. So even if he's starting from week 1, just not a lot of experience. Again, I would imagine that Brian Flores is licking his chops against a quarterback that is, a rookie. Now, granted, they're in Carolina, and yes, as you mentioned, it is the Adam Thielen revenge game. I'm a little less afraid of Adam Thielen than I am of Eric Kendricks in week 3. But sorry, Adam, we love you. But I also think that's a W. And I think that'll be a game where I have this feeling, and again, just using my crystal ball here, where it might be close early, and I think the Vikings maybe take off in the second half, and it's just not much of a game after that. Like I could see like a 14-14 tie at half, and then we end up winning like 28-17 or something like that. So we'll see.
Right.
We'll see.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, week 5 we got at home. You already mentioned this one before. At home against Kansas City. Yeah, Patrick Mahomes coming into Minnesota. What do you think?
That's a late window game too. So, I mean, all eyes on us, Chiefs versus Vikings. I don't know. Like, usually you have to be perfect to be Patrick Mahomes, and even then, it's like, okay, well, dang. Here we have the intangibles working on our side. It's at home. It's in US Bank Stadium. He's never played there before. It's going to be a juiced atmosphere because it's Chiefs Vikings. There's going to be a lot of people in the building.
Yeah. And we're 3-1 at this point.
And we're 3-1, so we're feeling good about ourselves, hypothetically.
Hypothetically.
Something about this Chiefs offense to me, I don't know. Like, can they keep making it work with all these random pieces? Like, can Kadarius Toney make that next step? Can Travis Kelce stay on the trajectory that he is, going up to the age that he is? Like, are they going to be able to just get by with 7th round running backs? I mean, I know they just re-signed Jerick McKinnon, but I would have to probably take this as an L. But I wouldn't be surprised if it was like a 3-point swing either way. Honestly, I want to trust my Vikings here, but if I'm thinking realistically and had to put something on it, I'd probably put an L for us here.
Yeah. I think the conservative take is it's a loss, and you can't feel too bad unless you just get killed. Because that's the thing. Like when you play these good teams, just like when we talked about with the Eagles, it's not so much that you lost. It's if you seem like you're outclassed, that's when it hurts. When it seems like you don't even belong in a game with this caliber of team, that's when it stings a little more. If you got some tight games, look, the best teams, right, have tight games. The Super Bowl usually is a tight game. So, if we can hang, I'll be all right. But as you mentioned, it could get a little crazy. I mean, it's early enough in the year where, we've seen that Chiefs team still try to figure things out early in the year where they get some weird losses. So why not us? Why not us? All right, but we're going to go with that 3-2. Next, we've got Chicago in Chicago. So week 6, we head into Chicago. I'm feeling pretty good about this one. How about you, AJ?
I feel great about this one too. I mean, it's early enough in the year. Nice fall day at Soldier Field. I like the addition that the Bears made to get Justin Fields, DJ Moore. I think that's going to be a match made in heaven if Justin Fields can come along as a passer, and that's certainly a guy that he needs to make that next step. With that being said, I still don't think they have enough pieces in the toolbox. I mean, they had a good free agency and they had a good draft, but I still feel like they're maybe like 1 or 2 years away from us being like, okay, well, we actually have to be like, are they a threat? Can the Bears do something? So I would chalk that up as probably like a 10-point W going down to Soldier Field. They always tend to play us a little bit goofy there. I don't know what it is, no matter how good our team is. So I wouldn't really be surprised if it was, tied at half, or we were losing at half, or if we had to make a come from behind effort to win it in the 4th. But I'm going to go ahead and chalk this up as a W.
Yeah, I like this as a W as well. I have a feeling that KOC is going to break the curse. I think KOC and Quasi are going to figure out the formula to take down this Soldier Field curse where we always seem to get stuck in the mud there. And I think that, that starts this year, hopefully, where we can win definitively. I don't want just these like backdoor wins. I think we can win pretty definitively there. So 4-2 through 6 games. We did have a couple of comments here. Just want to bring those in for just a moment. We've got David, who used to contribute for us here on the Skol Purple podcast. He's got his own podcast now, which is Skol State of Mind. So make sure to go follow that podcast and follow him on his socials. David says that they got to slow cook him, and so we need to rush him out there. He was talking about Patrick Mahomes. That's what we were going through that particular game. I can't disagree with that. You got to rattle him. I mean, Flores is going to bring the house. I think he's not going to be shy about blitzing corners and doing some fun stuff. So then we had Carson. Yeah, why not us, baby? Why not us? Why can't we do it? I think we can take him down.
Why not us?
Exactly. All right. So next game we've got 4-2 heading into week 7 is home Monday Night Football against the 49ers. We don't know who's leading 49ers. I don't know. I mean, I think is Purdy out all year? Is that what it is? Or is he... or is that still like up in the air? Maybe I'm just out of the loop.
I think he'll be ready for training camp or like shortly thereafter. But I don't know. I think that's what the ruling was on that. I think they were thinking he might have to have Tommy John surgery, which if that was the case, he would be out for like until next year at this time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't. The 49ers, they scare me. That defense is loaded. But that quarterback situation is also like, it could be Brock Purdy, it could be Trey Lance, it could be Sam Darnold, it could be someone that we've never even freaking heard of. That's super good. Yeah. I would hate to go against us and give us another loss, but at this point, it's like, it's really going to have to be like that offense is going to have to be humming at that point to where we can overcome their defense and then really, I would have to probably put this as an L. I don't know.
Yeah. I think the conservative take is L. I really think, and I'm not saying we're going to get blown out. It's just as good as this team is, and by this team, I mean the 49ers, I just think they find a way. And it's going to stink because it's going to be at home and it's going to be on the national stage. And then we're going to get all the, Kirk in prime time. And there is something to be said for that. I'm not a big Kirk guy.
Really?
No, I'm not. So for you, AJ, I'll give you my little elevator pitch here. Kirk Cousins is a good quarterback. I would never tell you that he is not a good quarterback. He is good. The problem is that he's seldom bad, and I'll tell you why that's a negative thing, because he's also seldom great. He's great sometimes. It's not saying he's never great. He is great sometimes. That's what makes him a good quarterback, and he is good most of the time. He's rarely going to lose you a game. But he's also rarely going to lift up all the boats on the team. He's just not a guy. He's not going to create magic. He's not in the top 3 quarterbacks in the league that are going to make something happen out of nothing. He's a really good product to run your system if you've got a good offensive line and you have some decent weapons. You don't need amazing weapons, but you need some decent weapons. So Kirk's like the epitome of a very high floor quarterback, which is great if you've got a Super Bowl roster. The stuff that I heard this offseason, which I thought was kind of hilarious, a lot of Kirk stands out there that are like, well, if he gets traded to San Francisco, watch him go there and win a Super Bowl, and then he's going to be laughing at all of us. And I would say, I think you're right. I think if he went to San Francisco, he'd probably win a Super Bowl. But the reason why is that San Francisco's roster is much better than our roster. Yep. So, Kirk Cousins is a guy that if you can put together an amazing roster, absolutely he could win a Super Bowl. But that's the difference between a good quarterback and a great quarterback. A great quarterback doesn't need an elite roster to win a Super Bowl. They just need a good roster. And you need to have one of those two. And until the Vikings get to that point, that's why Kirk isn't enough. It doesn't mean he's bad. It just means we haven't put together a good enough roster to just have a good quarterback. If that even makes sense. But people don't.
I 100% agree with your take. And I feel the same way about that too. Like Kirk Cousins is good enough, but he's not good enough at the end of the day where he can just like be good like be amazing and just lift you up. That's just not who he
Right.
is. But the problem is that there's not like how many people are like that? Pat Mahomes, Herbert, like Burrow, maybe not even Herbert. Like Pat Mahomes, Hurts, Burrow. That's pretty much it at this point. So like
Yeah.
you're either going to die trying for one of those people, or you got to live with what you got. And I perfectly understand that.
Yeah. Yeah. We're talking about like the top tier generational type quarterbacks. I've said this many times, AJ, and I'm a big Teddy Bridgewater guy. So if we had Teddy Bridgewater's brain and Kirk Cousins' talent, we'd have a Hall of Fame quarterback. That's my opinion. Because Teddy played his best football when it mattered. The fourth quarter, it's like his stats were elevated whenever the game was on the line, game-winning drive. Like he just was, man. But the problem was he was a little limited by what he could do. I mean, the arm strength wasn't great. The deep ball was, accuracy really fell off after about 15 yards. Kirk Cousins doesn't have those problems.
True.
But if he had the mental game, whoo, yeah, I mean, that'd be scary. Anyway, that's a pipe dream. All right, so we're 4-3 through 7 games. I think as a Vikings fan base, we're feeling good, but we're still feeling like, I don't know, 4-3. That's still getting it. But up next, week 8, we're at Green Bay. So I think this is where we can maybe have a get right game. Make me feel good about it, AJ.
This is where we start stacking W's. I think if, like what you said and what everybody else believes, the Packers start falling apart, this is kind of where we start to see, all right, Jordan Love, he ain't it. Like, he only threw for 170 yards today. He had 2 terrible picks. Like, this is where we start to see things come together finally for us. Here's the thing. I want to wait until we actually see that happen, though, because even like last year, I was like, oh, the Packers are going to be so bad. But then I was like, you know what? Let me walk that back because we got to see it first. And then they really weren't. I don't know. They were kind of back and forth. But I feel like that was just a pipe dream that the media was like, oh, the Packers will be good. And then they got 5 primetime games anyway. What the hell? But I digress because I'm not the schedule maker. But I will be one day. But yeah, this will be a dub for sure. I feel like, Lambeau Field, late October, that's the kind of football that you want. That's the kind of football you need in your life. We're going to start stacking W's here. This is where, we get out of that 49ers game. We get out of that funk. It'll be a short week, but, you have to, it's a quick drive over the border to go get a W against a team that we cannot stand. So,
yeah. Yeah, I think this is a W. I think this is a little bit of a get-right game. I think we've had some good games, but again, just like we talked about, I think we play the Chiefs, the Eagles tough, but I think those are losses. So I think getting to 5-3 in a definitive win in Green Bay, it appeases the fan base, makes the team feel a little bit better. I'm taking the win, 5-3 after the Packers in week 8. So 5-3 at about the halfway point. Next, we've got Falcons in Atlanta, week 9. Bijan Robinson, we get to see him for the first time, at least, against the Vikings. How do you feel about the Falcons at Mercedes-Benz Dome Stadium, whatever they call it?
First of all, Mercedes-Benz, I've been there. I went there in 2019 for a Minnesota United Atlanta soccer game. Unbelievable. The cheapest food you can ever buy. I bought nachos for $4. I was living. So I might go to that game in Atlanta because my dad also lives down there. So I mean, 2 birds, 1 stone. I feel like this is a win. However, I will bring it up, and you can quote tweet me this. You can bring back the receipts. This might be, I don't know. I want to say that this might be the goofy L, but this is definitely like, I feel like this has trap game written all over it. Because like the Falcons, they run the ball really well. They want to keep doing that. Arthur Smith will keep doing that with Bijan Robinson. I feel like Kyle Pitts hasn't been anything up to this point to where now we're maybe going to see him finally step into that superstar that he's destined to be. So I'm going to take this as a W, but I would not be surprised at all if this was, a trap game L or like a game where we barely got out of it alive. Like it had to be like, goofy stuff happens. We went on a last second field goal type thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's going to be a tougher game than people anticipate. I'm with you. I think this is a win, but I think this is going to be a tougher game than we might think. Like, I think this is one where we might, going into it, think, oh yeah, we're going to run away with this game. Because it is tough. I mean, until I can see this defense, and like I've said many times, even just tonight, I have a lot of faith in Flores being able to get us to the point where we are a serviceable defense. I do not think the Vikings are going to be like some top 10 defense from where they were last year. I don't see that as a possibility, but I
No.
think we could maybe get to like middle of the pack, to maybe like somewhere between the 15th and 18th ranked defense. I know that sounds like not that great, but when you're coming from last, that's a bit of an improvement. And I
It
think
can't
with
get any
how good
worse.
yeah, and as good as this offense can be this year, I think that's enough, right? I think that's enough to win a decent amount of games. So, with them trying to, again, as you mentioned, play the run game and really just pound the rock all day long, that puts a lot of stress on a young defense that's still trying to prove themselves. So it might come down to like, a turnover or two on that one. So we'll see. That'll be a fun one. I do think it's a win. So I'm going to log it as a win, 6-3 through 9. Next one we got at home. We talked about this team already at home against the Saints. How do you feel about the Saints as they march in to US Bank Stadium?
I hope we destroy the Saints 36-0. I will go on record saying that I think I do hate the Saints more than I hate the Packers, just because that bounty gate thing that still does not sit right with me. How anybody ever got away with that? Like, why is Sean Payton still in the league? Why? Like, every time we get a Jonathan Vilma game on Fox, I roll my eyes and I want to mute the TV and I want to cut my ears off. That being said, I hope we stop the Saints. But they have a good defense. Like, they have Tyrann Mathieu. They have Demario Davis. They still have Cam Jordan, who every time he plays us, he turns into freaking Reggie White. So I wouldn't be surprised if they gave us a little bit of a run for money. Hell, they did last year with Andy Dalton in London. But now it's back at home. I think this is like a solid touchdown or more W for our Minnesota Vikings, but would not be surprised either if the Saints took us for a ride. I don't see this being an L. I really hope not, but
Yeah.
you never know.
Yeah, I think this is a win. Here's a really interesting take here for you, AJ. What if we found out from Jonathan Vilma that he had early intel that Brett Favre was allegedly stealing welfare money?
He just ruined it all.
Whose side are you on, AJ?
I guess I'm neutral at this point. I don't know. I'm gonna have to back off that one.
Allegedly, Mr. Favre. Allegedly. Yes. No, I think that's a win. I just think, there's too much going on with New Orleans in a bad way. So I'm gonna say, unless Derek Carr is who he thinks he is, I just don't see that being a win for New Orleans. And it really, we're at home, so I'm gonna take that 8-3. Wow, we're really feeling good at 8-3.
We are.
Then we go on the road, which is always tough. Week 11, Mile High Stadium in Denver. Speaking of Peyton, I can't think of his Sean Payton. Sean Payton led Denver Broncos. Sunday Night Football. How you feeling about that game? Is that kind of a testy one for you?
I think so, and I really like when the league makes these matchups where it's like these two teams, they kind of feel like they're at a similar level and they could be going into this year. So, that game happens, right before a shout before Thanksgiving. So by that point, we're going to know pretty well who the Broncos are and who the Vikings are. I don't know. Last year with the Broncos, I feel like was silly. I just like what Russell Wilson became, but I also kind of feel bad. Like, he was getting torched last year, but he also deserved it for some of the stuff that he did and like some of the stuff that came out against him. That being said, I feel like they're going to kind of turn it around this year, and Russell Wilson's going to be a lot better. That Broncos team is going to be a lot more together. That defense is pretty solid. Very slept on. I think that's the top 10 unit once we get to the end of the year here. I would have to probably mark that as a W, though. I don't really. Again, we might get down to the road and maybe a week before be like, ooh, I don't know about this one. This might be an L. But right now, as it stands, like this, we don't know what this Denver team is going to be. We kind of know what this Vikings team is going to be. I feel like at the end of the day, it's just going to be, a JJ Fest and Mile High. That's another circle it date for Vikings fans if you are of the 420 variety. like
Oh,
people that
that's
I
right.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm gonna try and go out to that game for sure because Denver is sweet, and I want to go to that stadium so bad. And a
Oh, it's
night game
beautiful.
too, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
You been
Yeah.
there?
I have been there. It's amazing.
Oh,
And I would also agree there are adult activities that
tons of
can be
adult
had
activities.
that we will also very soon be able to have here in Minnesota. I think at about March 18th, they're voting on that. Not that I would know or am keeping track. Um,
Yeah, what's that about?
yeah, I don't know. All right, so that puts us through week 11. I also think I think it's a testy win though. I think it's a
Oh
testy
yeah,
one. I could see that one going either way, especially because it is a prime time game. And look, for as much as I don't like Sean Payton, he certainly has been able to win games, and I think he'll be able to get a lot out of Russell Wilson, at least more than what they got out of him last year. So that
right.
puts us at
Oh yeah.
what is it? 8-3 through week 11. Week 12, we're home against the Bears. I'm going to say this Monday night game against the Bears, week 12. This one is one that feels a little bit like a trap game for me. But how are you feeling about it?
I would agree. The Bears, they seem to play a little bit better, no matter their skill, in prime time. This would be an interesting game. Again, another kind of interesting game where it's like, how is this going to play out? And then you throw it in prime time, and that kind of amplifies things a little bit. I mean, I feel like it's easy to sweep the Bears. And I wouldn't be surprised if we maybe lost this game just because, maybe people are, so gassed, and who knows what injuries look like at this point. And the bye is right after that game.
Yeah.
But I don't really see any way that we lose, and it'd be really embarrassing if we did. Yeah, I would have to chalk this up as a W. But yeah, I could definitely see this being a little bit of like that home trap game for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to say I don't know if we go. I think one of these games is losses. I'm just going to say it. I think either the Denver game or the Chicago game, one of them I feel like's a loss somewhere in there. Only because I think it's two primetime games back to back. I mean, unless Kirk is like,
oh yeah,
this is a contract year. We're putting all the naysayers to bed. Super Bowl bound, baby. Obviously, and I've said this before, if Kirk Cousins wins us a Super Bowl, I will tattoo his face on my ass cheek. Like I'll do it. You bring it back. Cousins is going left or right cheek. I'll let the fans choose. It's going right there. So, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. I just think it's a lot for this team, and I do think that with a quarterback that can move around as well as Fields can, that just puts a lot of stress on a defense that is young and still figuring things out. I mean, I know we're going to be 11 games in at that point, but it's hard to keep track of a guy that's got that much athleticism that can create. The problem is with Fields is, and I think if you're a Bears fan, it's can he create and then finish the play? I think that's been the issue. He can move around, he can create time for himself. The problem is then can he look downfield, make a read, or decide to take off when it's appropriate? Like that's the part that separates a guy like Justin Fields or a guy that can run a little bit and be athletic, and then a guy like Michael Vick. Everybody wants to compare these quote unquote running quarterbacks to Michael Vick, but people forget like Michael Vick had a hell of an arm. Like he could pass. Like Vick could sit in the pocket if he wanted to. The difference was he could do everything. Like that's it. So I don't know. I'm still up in the air, but I think one of those two are a loss. I'm gonna put them at 9-4 after or 9. Yeah, 9-4, 9-3. 8-3, 8-4, 8-4. There we go. I'm going to put them at 8-4 after week 12. Again, don't pay me to do math. Then we go into the bye, as you mentioned. That's week 13. I think we're feeling pretty good at 8-4 at week 13 because this last stretch, it's going to be a fun one, but I think we have some winnable games here. 14, of course, get the beads out. I know it's not New Orleans, but it still sounds fun to say. We're going to Vegas, baby, in Las Vegas. Raiders. We got the Jimmy G, as long as he stays healthy. led Raiders. I think I'm ready to party, but where are you at on this one?
Oh, I'm ready to party. I was already on kayak looking at flights. Like that has to be like if there's one road game I go to this year, it's that one. So it just has to happen. I feel like there's going to be tons of Vikings fans there because that's what happens at every Raiders game. But also they have like the most expensive tickets in the league because it's Las Vegas. But I feel like that's a W for sure. Like defensively, they don't really have anything that could challenge us. Offensively, Devontae Adams. Who's going to cover him? I was thinking about that the other day. I was like, oh, shit, we have to play Devontae Adams. Who's going to cover him? But also, then I was like, oh, Jimmy G is their quarterback. I don't know if I'm that scared anymore. So, yeah, W for sure. It's going to be a great time in Vegas. Right before Christmas, we get to get out, go to Vegas. I don't know what the weather is like this year, that time of year, probably like 50, 60, 70, but it'll be better than probably 20 and some kind of snow that's on the ground. And we can celebrate a Vikings W being the Raiders. I can definitely see that for sure.
Absolutely. So AJ, what's your game of choice if you're heading to the casino?
Like a slot or
are you a slots guy? You blackjack? You playing poker?
I don't know how to play poker. Blackjack, I feel like is a little bit too intense, and you kind of have to be all there to be playing that and be focused on it. But I enjoy blackjack because I learned how to play blackjack in 6th grade during my math class, and it's great memories to me. I would definitely have to take myself as more of a slot guy. I love video games and seeing the big slot machine with all the colors and all the big video boards and going fishing. Yep, sign me up. I'll sit my ass there for all day and use my $30 or whatever I'm putting aside for slot play and do that. So yeah, I definitely would take myself as more of a slot guy.
More of a slot guy. Yeah, I do like the slots. The problem is with the slot machines nowadays, I don't know what gets me a win and what doesn't. I do, and there's colors and things going on. I'm too ADD. So I just wait for it to tell me that I won, and I'm like, I won. I don't know what I did.
Almost too much going on with those now.
Yeah, exactly. Just tell me, it could just be a blank screen that just has words pop up that says you won that time. And then I'd say, hey, there we go. I did it.
Right.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I do like the slots. I play a little blackjack, but I lose too much money too fast playing blackjack. That's the problem.
Right.
Everybody's going to go on my Twitter. Yeah, please follow me on Twitter. I'll just announce when I'm heading down to Canterbury, and you guys can just make sure to sit at the table whenever I'm gambling. Oh, yeah, Tony's there. Go make some money. All right, so the win over the Raiders in Vegas, week 14. That's going to put us at, 9-4.
Yeah.
Week 15 is the TBD game where we are at Cincinnati, but they're holding on to that game as a possible flex into a primetime spot. Or, if they don't know if it's going to be a noon or a 3 o'clock. But in Cincinnati, how you feeling about that one? I think it's going to be a tough game.
Yeah, that's a tough game for sure. I really respect the Bengals. Joe Burrow's probably one of my favorite players outside of the Vikings. Jamar Chase is crazy. T. Higgins was my saving grace as my wide receiver 1 because I'm stupid in fantasy last year. So, but that team is loaded. They're going to be, as long as Joe Burrow and Chase there and that whole group, they're going to be an AFC contender all the way through and through. And they really don't lose at home, honestly. So I feel like this is an L for us, but I feel like this is a game where you got to go in there and you got to be competitive because everybody knows the team that the Bengals are, and we want to be that team as well. I can definitely for sure seeing that being like a Sunday, late, mid or late, window, Saturday night, Bengals Vikings. That would be awesome for sure. And then we can say, oh, the Vikings had another primetime game and Kirk Cousins played badly. But I feel like it's going to be tight either way. We played them. Yeah, that was the opener a couple of years ago, and that was a tight game too. But they've only gotten better since, and I don't know where we're at. So,
yeah. I think that's probably a loss. And like you mentioned, I like the Bengals. I think they're a good team. And the way this record's shaken out, I think this is going to create some fun football as we head into this last month here, because with the loss, we're 9-5. So kind of make it or break it time. I would say if we are sitting at 9-5 after week 15, we start to get those feelings like, okay, either we're going to make a run here and push, or things can get a little pear-shaped, because this is when we get into that weird stretch. Last 3 games of the season, all divisional games, 2 of them against Detroit, who I think will probably have a similar record. I think they'll be hanging with us. I don't think they will be 9-5, but I think they might be something like, I don't know, like I could see them as like a 7-7, somewhere in there, still hanging with us, right? So that's the next game at home, the Lions. I feel like this one, just for the sake of, I guess, good football, good entertainment, I'm gonna give you mine for. I think this is gonna be a loss. I think it's gonna be a loss. I think it's gonna drop us to 9-6. What do you think?
See, I would agree with you if there. I mean, obviously, you would prefer, like, if we split, that the win would be at home. I don't know. It's gonna be tough because the Lions, they're gonna put all their chips in the table. Like you said, we're probably gonna be hanging around similar records, so that's gonna be a massive game. Did that? I mean, right now as it stands, that's like a noon game on Christmas Eve, but I wouldn't be surprised if that was maybe like in a different slot. Maybe it
Yeah,
won't be. But they're the team that we're supposedly going against. That's going to be the 2-head division race as it stands right now, early on. They're the easy favorite by a lot, which is stupid as hell to me, but whatever. I guess people
yeah,
can make their money. I want to say this is W, and I'll put the road game as an L, just because I don't like. But also depends on like circumstance too. So like last year, I went to the Christmas Eve game against the Giants. The whiteout, super sick. Love that. They need to do that every year. However, the crowd was a little bit more of like your normal, like, sports going crowd. It wasn't like all the crazies there. And it was a little bit like, you could see that there was a little bit of seats there because of it was so cold and the roads were so bad that people just sold their tickets, and it was right before Christmas. So that was an issue too. Will that be an issue this time around? We don't know. And this is a major game. Like, this isn't the Giants where you can just kind of, okay, maybe kind of putz around. Like, this is a division rival, a team that you're competing with for the division crown. I'm going to chalk this up as a W, but I would not be surprised at all. And you have to live with it if it's an L. So,
yeah, yeah, yeah. And like I said, I'm with you. I think we split. And I think a bit of it for me is like wishful thinking, because teaser, I think we're gonna win in the next one, and I think that's gonna punch our ticket. Um, so either way, we're sitting at 9-6 or 10-5 here if we go with the win. Week 17, we've got at home against the Packers. I think this is going to be a really fun game. It's Sunday Night Football, and I really do think this is a game, as a Vikings fan and as the Vikings franchise or Vikings fan base, excuse me, if we could like really lay a smackdown, if we could stomp out the Packers on Sunday night to keep us kind of alive for that divisional crown, I really think that's gonna, like, it's basically gonna put the stamp on, like, this division is no longer the Green Bay Packers anymore.
right.
And I think that'd be huge for obviously us as fans, because it's the big rivalry, right? But boy, Packer fans, I don't know what they're gonna do in Wisconsin, because they're not ready. They are not ready to have a normal quarterback situation and franchise. So I'm going to say that one's a win. I think you're going to be on board with me on that one.
Yeah, drink up, Scotties. It's going to be a long year. Here's the thing. Like, if the Packers are what we think they're going to be, will that even still be a Sunday night game at that point? Who knows? Like, they might flex out of that to put something better in there. I haven't looked at the whole schedule yet, so I don't know what that would be. But stuff like that tends to happen. I feel like this is, looking at it early on, it's kind of setting up to, kind of be that stamp of approval, like you said, where it's like, it's New Year's. It's kind of like the changing of the guard. We come out, smash them. We have a good game. We punch our ticket to the playoffs, whether that be wild card or division winner. New Year's Eve, kind of turning the page for 2024. It's a good vibe. I feel like that's a win for sure, and a pretty resounding win at that.
Yeah. Yeah, I would love to see it. I'm excited for it. And who knows? Like you mentioned, maybe Jordan Love isn't even starting at this point. They're just throwing out anybody. And they're looking forward to the next season. I mean, that's really going to be the telltale sign right there. If they basically start resting players are going, well, we're going to bench you because you're not playing well. Or, I mean, you never know. Weird things can happen late in the year. That's going to lead us into Week 18, last game in at Ford Field in Detroit. Big game, January 7th. I don't know if this game will be for the division crown. I think that the Vikings have a chance to separate themselves enough. Obviously, it's good for entertainment if it is like win and in type of thing. But I think this is going to be a game where the Vikings probably have the division pretty sewn up. I'm going to say if especially if they can win that Week 16 game, obviously. But it might be a game for like the Lions, where the Lions still need to maybe secure a seed as a wild card. I could see that being a possibility. How do you feel about the last game? I know you said you kind of feel like maybe they'd split. Maybe this is the one where there's more to play for Detroit. So maybe I'm more on board with your train of thought there, that maybe they've got to win this game to punch their ticket to the playoffs, whereas the Vikings might already be over the hump.
And I mean, that's just me being optimistic. Like, I hate seeing us lose at home. I hate seeing us lose in general, but seeing us lose at home just sucks. It's a punch in the gut. It's stupid, but someone's, got to lose the game. So, I mean, I feel like they're going to split with us either way. Like we said, we don't know. I mean, at that point, it could be wrapped up. At that point, that could be the NFC North Championship game, and that could be the Sunday night game that everyone sees, and then, we fall off the bus or we come out and kill it. So, I mean, I really don't know. Like, this could be, like I said, I think this will be an L just based off of going off the split and my hopefulness. But, it could be a W, and it could be, maybe the Lions run away with it just because they're so desperate to get themselves in. I think they will get into the playoffs some way or another this year. Like, it just feels like that's the writing on the wall. Everyone wants that to happen so bad. And, I respect the Lions. I respect them more than I do the Packers, the Bears, and the Saints, and the Eagles. So, but you're not rooting for them either, I guess, because then that means less for us. But
right. Yeah, I think again, either way you look at it, we're probably going to split one of those two games. If we're doing the math, that puts us at about 10-7, 11-6, pretty much where we thought we'd be at that point, at least where I thought we'd probably end up. And obviously my own personal bias that I'm projecting onto the schedule, that seems about right. No, but I could certainly see it going down that way. Are you feeling pretty good about a 10-7, 11-6 finish for your Minnesota Vikings?
That's honestly where I feel like we should be. Last year I said it at some point during the year, and the boys got mad at me. Going back to the year before, Zimmer's last year, we had all these games where it was just we couldn't figure our head out. We couldn't get it straight. Last year, we won every close game except for the playoffs. And I feel like that was positive regression at the very max. So now you kind of come off that like 10, like when you say 10-7 out loud, that sounds like kind of a shitty record, but it doesn't have to be like 10 wins is still very good in the NFL. 11-6, I feel like is definitely a good sweet spot for us. Like, even you kind of say that record out loud and it's like, but like looking at our schedule, like we got some dogs at home. It's not going to be an easy season by any means. Even though it's like NFL is calculated that we're like late pack as far as like strength of schedule goes. I don't know what to ever think of that because you never know. So that's really where I'm at on that.
No, I'm right there with you. I'm feeling pretty good about it. I think that's enough to win this division. And at the end of the day, that's all you really ask for. It's just we need to give ourselves a chance. Everybody just needs a ticket to the playoffs, and then crazy things can happen. The biggest thing, like any team, I'm going to say it. I know it's the obvious. You got to stay healthy. You got to stay healthy. You got to be able to win the games you're supposed to win, and at least stay competitive in the games that, maybe you should probably lose. So we'll see. I don't think that's a bad way to end up 10-6 or 10-7, 11-6. I'm not feeling too bad about it. I think there's some really fun games here. AJ, I appreciate all of your offerings this evening. And as we kind of wrap up with going over the schedule, again, just for everybody that's listening, where can everybody find you yet again on your socials, on your podcast? Where can they find you?
Yeah, so my socials at AJ Murphy 763 on Twitter and on Instagram. That's really the only place that I'm active. I mean, I don't even tweet that much. I need to start tweeting more. But yeah, that's where you can find me. And then the podcast, which we go live, we're probably going to have an episode cranked out here within the next couple of days, going over the schedule as well. 10K SOS on Instagram and Twitter. You can find our State of Skol podcast. We upload right after Vikings games, right after big moments. We want to be the first podcast out, so that's really our market goal for this year, this season, and moving forward. So yeah, you can find us there. We got, last year our Twitter wasn't popping. It would be like no one would tweet during the game, and then someone would say something, and then we'd all tweet. Now we've got stuff behind us. Season 2 is going to be lit. So 10K SOS. Then if you want to follow me, which I don't ever tweet much, but like rage tweets or like tweets about wrestling or basketball or whatever stupid shit. But AJ Murphy 763. That's me. That's where you can find me.
Amazing. Well, AJ, I do appreciate it. Again, for everybody that's listening on Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, if you're on audio only, please make sure to give us a rating. Send all the hate mail to Carson since he isn't on the episode to defend himself. So send it all his way. But again, my name is Tony Stegman, aka Steggy Stories on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. I've got signs that I put in your yard. No, I'm just kidding. But again, we do thank you from the Skol Purple podcast. If you're on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe again. It keeps me from gaining even more weight with more ice cream. So we do appreciate your time. Thank you so much, and we will see everybody on the next one. Thanks, everybody.